Welcome to the Choice YouTube channel. Today we'll be learning how to make these beautiful Ankara patches on our garment. We'll also be learning how we can line this with her lining or whatever it is that we want to use to turn it in this tutorial. It's very simple to make and it is beginner friendly. There is also tips on how you can place and arrange this on your fabric in this tutorial, so you can see it's very loaded. If this is what you would like to learn, kindly stay tuned to the end of this tutorial. Thank you. Okay, so to do this tutorial now, it's actually a very loaded tutorial because we'll be learning how to cut out patches of Ankara on our fabric. We'll also be learning how to either lining or seal the edges, and also how we can use this to decorate our garments. Okay, so I'll be working with this Ankara that has like leaf patches. This is the design I'll be going for, and to do this now, it's advisable that you use a quality Ankara. This is just a small Ankara, but you should use a cotton Ankara so that the fraying will not be too much. You can see all these things coming off from this now, but we'll also learn how to seal it off. So I'll be using this and also this gum stay as my interface, and then I'll be lining it with this doll face fabric. Okay, so I'll be using construction color so that we'll see very well what I'm going to do. So the first thing I'll do now is to take this now and then attach my gum stay to it on the wrong side so that I can trace out my Ankara patches. Okay, so now I've gone ahead to iron interface to this, as you can see. Now the next thing is for me to take my scissors to cut out this flower pattern. Now there are several ways you can cut out your pattern. You can either use your scissors, which is very common and which I'm sure everybody will have, but if you have a soldering iron, you can also use this to cut out your pattern. You just need to place it on it and then use it to trace it out. The beauty of this is that the soldering iron is going to seal the edges for you. You know, it uses electric, so as you are cutting out your pattern, it's also sealing the edges for you. But in my own case here, where I want to line it, I don't really need that. Another way you can also seal your edges is after cutting it out like this, you can take your lighter and then use it to carefully burn the edges of the pattern. Okay, so those are several ways you can seal the edges of your pattern. But if you are using a cotton Ankara, like I said, after gumming it like this with an interface, it shouldn't fray. Even this will not fray, but just for long-term purpose, so that it can last long. That is why I decided I want to add something else to it. So now I've cut out several patterns of this now, as you can see. Just the same way I showed us how I cut this one, is the same way I cut out all of this. Okay, if you cut it out and you see that your gum stay is not gummy, you can take it back to your iron and then give it a good press. So now, like I said, there are several ways you can turn this. You can either turn it with a lining, like I'm going to be doing in this tutorial. You can also use a bias, but using a bias may be a bit tricky, especially if you are working with patterns like this. Assuming you are working with a perfect pattern, maybe a pattern that has like a perfect circle, it will be easier for you to just remove your bias and then use it to turn the edges of this circle. And also, if you be placing this directly on the fabric completely, maybe it's not going to be showing outside, because now we've added gum stay to this. If we don't line it, it means all our gum stay will be showing outside. So if you're going to be placing this on the fabric and then you'll be sewing it, you may not need to line it. But if the style you are going for requires that it will be showing, you will need to conceal this, especially if you are using like gum stay, which may remove after a while when you wash it. So that is why it is important for you to line it. So now to line this, now I'm just going to take this and then take the lining that I wish to use to cover up. Okay, so I'm using this doll face, like I said, but you can use whatever lining it is that you wish to. You can use cotton lining, you can use polish, you can use whatever it is, and you can even add interface to your lining also. But this is fine for me, so I'm not going to be adding interface to it. I'm just going to place this on my lining like this, and then I'm going to hold it with a pin. Okay, you can trace it out, but it may not be too, you may not be too accurate. That is why I'll not be tracing this out. I'll only trace it out when I finish sewing it. Okay, so now I'm pinning this to my lining. Then after pinning it, I'll take it to my machine and then use a zigzag stitch to seal off the edges. Okay, so now I'm using this method because this pattern has like design, round design around here. Assuming it doesn't have design and it's easy, and especially this tiny side, that is why I'm just placing it directly on the fabric. Assuming it doesn't have all that, what I would have done is just place them right side facing right side, and then I'll sew on the wrong side and then turn it out the way we normally turn. Because I want to maintain every shape that I have here, that is why I'm placing it directly on it. So after placing it directly on it like this, I'm just going to be cutting out a small piece like this around it, which I'll cut completely when I finish sewing it with my zigzag machine. Okay, so this is my machine and I already set it on the zigzag stitch that I want. So now I'm just going to place this on it and then run my stitch around it just to seal off the edges of this. Okay, so gently you just sew it using your zigzag stitches. So you can see that it's already sewing it for us and it's sealing it at the same time. I hope you can see this. Let me just bring it down a bit so that we can see it well. Okay, so like I said, I'm using this method because of all this stock that this design have. Because they are so tiny, I may not be able to turn them out. That is why I prefer to seal it with my zigzag machine. So once you get to the end point like this, you stop and turn just like you sew normally, and that is how you will do till you completely seal off everything. You can see how simple it is to do this. I'm almost done with this now. Then I'm done sewing it now, and then I'll just bring it down and then cut it before I trim it up. Okay, so this is what I have. Okay, so now this is what we have, and you can see the edges are really neat now. This is it on the wrong side. I tried to use a contrasting color so that we can see. So I just set my machine to this zigzag because this is the stitch that okay, so this is what we have now. You can see that our cloth is completely sealed on the edges. Now the next thing for me to do now is to cut off all these rough edges that we have. You can see that it is neatly sealed. So you can set your zigzag machine to whatever stitch that you want. If you want it closer or looser than this, you can set it, but this is fine for me, and this is it on the wrong side. I try to use a contrasting color so that we can see it well. You can see how neat it is. So now I'm going to be trimming this off. So like I said, if you know you can be perfect with it, you can just cut the exact shape on your lining, but I prefer to do it like this so that I'll be sure that my fabric will be neatly turned. Okay, so that I'll not be having any shortage. So after using my zigzag machine, then I can easily trim off whatever excess that I may have. Okay, you can see how simple this is, and you're sure that your fabric is secured because it is now fully lined. nothing can happen to it. Okay, so you just need to cut it off neatly and you have your leaf shape. And when cutting, make sure that you don't cut off your thread, so you have to be very careful. Just cut very as close as possible, but don't cut off your thread. So now I have this now, and I can remove my paint, and I have my Ankara, so you can see now neatly turned on the edge. Especially if you want the other side to be showing, it's very important for you to turn it with lining, but use a matching thread in your case. So now this is another one. I use thread for this so that we can also see how I turned it out. So now the next thing is for us to start forming designs with our created patches. Okay, so now this is a mannequin, and I just wrapped an excess of the fabric on the mannequin like this so that we can see some styles we can form with this. Okay, so you can actually place it on your neckline here just to decorate the neckline anyhow you wish to do. Then you tack it, but I'll just be holding this with a pin. Now, like I said, the lining is important, especially for styles like this, because you know this side may be showing. Okay, so you don't want your interfacing to be showing. That's why you need to put lining on it. So you can arrange this anyhow you want. You can arrange this anyhow you want, like I said, and form whatever pattern you want with it. So this can just go around your shoulder or just one side of the shoulder, and you can also place it around the waist area here just to form any design you want. Okay, so you can just place it like this. Let me bring this camera a bit down so that we'll see what I'm saying. Okay, so you can just arrange it on the waist area like this. This is a design you can form. You can also make it fuller by just continuing the design, and then you carefully tack it to your fabric. So it is very, very versatile, and it just brings out beauty in your garment. It's really, really lovely. And if you just want it to stand very well on its own, you can use hard collar or gum stay. If you have collar stay, you can use it on it so that it can stand very well, and then it even form another effect for you. Okay, so these are the styles that you can form with this, and you can even be more creative to just create something more beautiful on your own. You can see how lovely